My name is Sakina. I'm the digital marketing specialist, and I'll be the host for this afternoon. Before we get started, I would like to let you know we are live and interactive, and we welcome your questions and feedback, and urge you to take part as much as possible. Today's agenda, I'll quickly introduce our company, what is MonitorPro, why we need, and followed by the demo. So Royal Cyber, we are headquartered in Naperville, Illinois, and is a leading software organization that provides services ranging from application development and deployment, training, and consultancy. We are IBM Premier Business Partners, SAP Hybris Partners, Microsoft, Oracle, and few open source environments. We have offices in more than 8 countries, and we provide cutting-edge technologies and solutions, which brings value to the businesses. And some of our clientels are Aramark, Apple Vacations, Follett, Office Brands, to name some few. We have a great speaker today. His name is Mr. Nirmal Kumar. He's our senior architect and a practice head for MonitorPro. So with further ado, let me pass it to Mr. Nirmal. Thank you.
Thanks, Akina. So, hi, I'm Nirmal. I'm the manager and practice head for the MonitorPro. So, MonitorPro is one of the Royal Cyber internal product which we developed for monitoring end-to-end transaction. So, why do we need a MonitorPro for? Most of the business customers who use IBM middleware like IAB, Data Power, and MQ. So they do have tools to track each and every middleware. Let's say we have some kind of tool for tracking Data Power, we have some kind of tool for tracking IAB, and we have some kind of tool to track MQ. So when we are putting it all together, we don't have a tool in the market to track the end-to-end transaction. For example, imagine a scenario in bank where the transaction is more critical. Like thousands of transactions are coming through and flowing through the middlewares you have. So that is where MonitorPro play a role in. So MonitorPro is a tool for tracking end-to-end business transaction, which flows through the IBM middleware. And in addition to that, like it also tracks the system metrics. So why we need MonitorPro? So if you have a use case where you want to track the transaction, where it hits your network until it leaves your network, then MonitorPro is the right tool for you. So it is for end-to-end business transaction, monitoring system middleware metrics, and you can have real-time alerts, and you can have a debugging and resolving errors, and also the report generation. So I will go over one by one in detail. When we started building the MonitorPro, these are the things we have in mind. Like the system should at least support these. So nowadays, customer handle high volume and high velocity of data. So we have built in a way such that the MonitorPro can scale and it can accept any number of transactions. So it can handle huge volume and huge velocity. And typically like the search support and sort support. So if I say search, it is not just a text search. It can be a it can be a partial text search or full text search, and you can do sort on any metrics. And we can also have aggregated metrics, like you want to know how many errors that has happened in a current period of time. So what are the top 5 errors? So those questions MonitorPro will answer. We also offer a tool to build the dynamic charts also. Okay, so what are the existing tools in the market and where MonitorPro sits? So we have compared the top 2 tools, which most of the clients who works with the Royal Cyber and who has IBM middleware users. So Splunk is one of those, and IBM. So if you can see, Splunk can support high volume and high velocity, but it is not designed specially for middleware to track the end-to-end transaction. So you had to do a lot of tweaking in the sense like you had to have a developer to customize the needs for transaction tracking. Rather, IBM BAM tool, like it is developed for IBM middleware, but it could not handle the high data load because it uses a SQL database as its backend. So here is where the MonitorPro it took the best of two worlds, like supporting high volume and high velocity, and also it is built specially for to track middleware transaction. So you don't have to change any code. I mean, if there is a change, it will be very minimalistic, and and this will support end-to-end tracking. Okay. Uh, I want to go through quickly the architecture of MonitorPro, how it will work, how it is working, and we have used all the open source stack. So the customer who is going to buy MonitorPro don't have to pay any license cost for the other softwares other than MonitorPro. So we do have Kafka, we do have microservices, we do have high-end Elasticsearch database which supports high volume and high velocity, and we have shippers, our custom shippers. We wrote our custom shippers which can ship the different metrics from your IBM middleware. And since we have developed it in a microservice type of way, if suppose let's say some customers wants to use a part of MonitorPro, they can do so. And everything is secured with OAuth 2.0. And now I'm going to show the tool, and I'm going to walk through these two scenarios. I'm going to generate a success transaction. I'm going to generate an error transaction and see how you can track with the MonitorPro, and delay transaction. And I'm going to show how to track with the MonitorPro. So this is how the MonitorPro looks like. So once you log into the MonitorPro, you'll be having different boxes for different use case. For example, if you are an admin, if you are a data power admin, you don't want to use other boxes. Rather, like you just want to use the data power metrics, and if you want to debug something in the data power, so we have a dedicated box for data power. And for each middleware which we support now, we have a dedicated box for it. Like for example, if we take data power, we have one, IAB we have one, and MQ we have one, and we have one box for the business transactions. So this is primarily for the operations team who handle calls, like if someone calls in and says like, okay, my transaction has failed, the operation team should know and should quickly able to respond them why the transaction was failed. So initial level one support. So let me go into the business transactions first. And if I go into the business transaction, here you can see the insights. So here I have a time filter where actually I can click for 24. By default, it is for 24 hours. So in last 24 hours, how many transaction has happened, out of which how many are errors and how many are success, and all those detail. And then what is the transaction activity looks like. So what was this transaction a week before and all those. Okay. So this will give the overall kind of view, like what is happening in the environment. So if you want to have a detailed view, so in the introduction, I said like MonitorPro tracks end-to-end transaction, right? So if you want to have the detailed view, we go into investigate, and here you would be having individual transaction IDs and what the transaction is called for example, operations. So in this case, the 504 transaction has called customer add profile. So it is one of the flows. And then we have a requester ID in here who is requested for this transaction, and it will show the total number of time elapsed and what is the status code description, and even you can see the payload also. So if I click on the payload here, you can see the payload. Sometimes like if you want to debug further, you may want to see the payload and search the payload. And there are two types, like recurse payload as well as the response payload. So as I said, I'm going to show three cases, which is more common in the industry, like what happens in the case of successful transaction, error, and delayed transaction. So let's go to the successful transaction. So here I have the postman. The postman act as a client, REST client, and we have one of our service called customer profile service, which sits in data power as well as IAB. So what is going to happen now is, so I'm going to trigger a transaction with the transaction ID 505. So this transaction will go through the data power, and then it will go through IAB, and then it will come back to the data power, and we'll get the 200 response in here. So I'm triggering the transaction. Let's give it some time. Yeah. Okay. So now you can see we got the 200 OK error, and I got some response as well. Uh, let's go into the Monitor Pro and see like how it looks like. So I'm going to first I'm going to the MonitorPro thing. So here you might have noted previously the successful transaction was 19, now it is 20. So immediately you know there is one transaction is added to the stack. And then I go into the business transaction, and I go into the investigate tab. And here you can see that there is a transaction with transaction ID 505. And let's say this is fine, but I want to see how many services or how many flows are involved in this transaction. So how can I see that? So I can click on this transaction ID 505, and then immediately I'll get a graph. We'll call it as business transaction flow graph. So this graph shows in detail like what is the path of the transaction. So here you can see the numbering 1, 2. So this says that there is a transaction that hits BTM POC MPG. This is the service name in data power, and we have different colorings for different middleware. So you can see like data power takes this color, and then IB takes yellow color. So the transaction goes into the data power, and then it took almost like 63 milliseconds in the data power, and then there is a network call, and it goes to IAB, and the network call took almost 873 milliseconds, and then it came back to data power. And here you can see the individual component. So for example, if I want to know how much time it took in the data power, so in total with the network time, so it is 1154, it's in milliseconds. So if I want to dig deep and then say I want to see the individual logs, so what has happened. So I can go to the individual logs, and here we provide metrics. I mean, we provide two types of metrics. One is the system log metrics, so what has happened in the system when this particular transaction is happening. So this metrics is provided in here, and we do have application logs metrics also. Okay, let's go to the second case. So in the second case, I'm going to trigger a transaction, but this time it's going to be an error transaction. So I'm not going to enter one of the field, which is the user ID field, and immediately like the transaction is going to throw an error. So let me change the transaction ID from 505 to 506, and now I'm sending a transaction in here. Okay, so we have got 500 internal server errors. So this means there is something wrong with the transaction. Let's see how MonitorPro will help us in debugging it. So I go to MonitorPro again, and here I might see the increase in error rate. Yeah, it has increased a little bit. I mean, increased to 113. And then I go to investigate tab. So in the investigate tab, I can see a transaction that has happened 506, which is an error transaction. So it is not showing now. I mean, previously the transaction it showed success, but now it is showing an error code along with the status description. So mandatory user ID field is missing. So at this point, we know that something has happened wrong in the system, that like we got 500 error, but we were not sure whether it is because of the flow which is in the data power, or whether it is because of the flow which resides in IAB or somewhere else. So to further investigate, I go in, and this time I don't see any business transaction flow graph. So the reason is why, because like we have only one node which has participated in the transaction, so which is data power, and we were pretty sure that like the other nodes are not participating, has not participated in the transaction, so the failure should happen in the data power. So to further investigate the failure, I'm clicking on the local ID. So this will give me the lock point IDs. So where the transaction has exactly failed. So that is the level of granularity we give in the MonitorPro to debug. So for example, let's say we have got two entries. One is request entry. So request has entered into data power, and we have response error, service error response. So at this point, we know that this is because of the MonitorPro, and this is because of the profile called customer add, and we know the device name, component name as well, and which domain it is. And if you want to see the payload also, you can see so this level of granularity we give. Okay. Let's go to the third case. So this is pretty interesting case, and most of the companies actually struggle in here. I mean, they want to know which has caused the delay, and what is the thing which they can improve to bring the delay down. So let me go ahead and then trigger one more transaction. So this time I'm going to trigger transaction ID 507. And then in user ID, I'm going to introduce a delay. So now when I click on the send button, we will ultimately get the success message, but it will take a long time to get the success message. So there will be some delay now. Okay. So here you can see it is loading. I still didn't get the response, so it is loading. So now I got the response. So here you can see the time from the tool which I'm using, Postman tool, like it almost took around 6 seconds to give me the response. So how MonitorPro will help us to debug that? Okay, now we go into the MonitorPro, and let's go again to investigate tab. And this time we can see the time elapsed is almost like 5 seconds, like 536, almost like 6 seconds. That the transaction is a successful transaction, but we don't know where the delay has been introduced. So I click in further. Okay, so I click in further, and then here we can see from this chart that there is a huge delay in IAB, like a 4-second delay in IAB. And you can further come down and see this IAB node, this node which is in IAB, which is customer profile service node, it took almost 4 seconds. So now we know that the IAB has caused the problem. So again, if you want to further investigate down like which of the IAB node has caused the problem, you can do so by going into these details. So here we will have a split up of time, saying that the event sorted by time. So at this point of time this has happened, and this point of time this has happened, and this will be more useful for IAB admin who is going to fix this issue. So these are the three things I have in demo, and also I want to quickly walk through the other features which we have in MonitorPro. So as I said, we have individual boxes for individual things. For example, if there is a data power admin who gets some who needs to fix something from data power, so what he has to do is like he has to go into the data power. He need not use other tools, so he can go into the data power, and here in for the data power admin we provide a description of what is the successful transaction and how many are success and what is the error transaction, and he can pick and choose from this one, and then he can also choose the device. So DB3, we have only one data power device, so it's not going to change the data much, but yeah, so he can pick and choose these things. And also here we provide the top service errors. So if you have different services, which of the service is causing more errors. So we provide like top K service errors, and and let me go into the other tab. So this is interesting metrics. So here we provide the system activity metrics, which will show the transaction that has happened per second, and then we also show what is the number of transactions that have happened previous week. Actually, you can cancel this graph to kind of make it uh, hide like whatever you want. If I want to hide the errors, like I can do like this. So you can see the thin lines in here, right? So those are the transactions that has happened, and this is very much useful for the data power admin. So data power is a box, and then you'd be having the CPU usage and memory usage. And if suppose, let's say, if the CPU usage is very high, then you might want to add some more hardware, like another data power box maybe. So for this type of cases, these charts will help to debug it. For example, if I can see here, mm, that there's a peak cycle. I mean, every time we trigger a transaction, it goes a little bit up, and there is some ideal time also, like where there is no transaction has happened. And we do have device memory as well. So the same concept, like the memory is almost constant throughout throughout the period. So apart from this, one more thing the data power admin would like to see is the raw messages which comes out of the data power. So if you click in here, you can see all the raw messages. So this is the system messages which gets generated from the data power. We collect the data using one of our custom logger, and then we pass it to our MonitorPro, and then you can visualize those data in here. So apart from these, we do have reports. So in most cases, you want to generate the reports as a batch, and you want I mean, like in some cases you might want to generate a report immediately. So let me just show one of the reports maybe, and then from there we can take questions. Okay, so in here, like, I have a report. So this is an IAB report. I mean, we simulated today, and so this is how the reports look like. And you can get the reports in different formats maybe, and I'm showing one of the format, which is the PDF format, which shows, like, if you want to submit some kind of thing for the business people to decide, like whether to where we are going and how many customers are there and how many transactions has happened in a particular point of time. So we can do with the report. So this is one of the simplest report, I would say. So which has transaction ID, start time and end time, and which operations it uses. We can also generate more complicated reports. So further going down, I mean, we have for IAB and we have for MQ, and we have one more thing which we provide, which is called operations. So what operations means is, like, something you in the production environment you want to do more often, like which, like, clearing the cache, and let's say you want to create a domain or delete a domain, so whatever it is. So we are providing a box for operations. So let me explain what operation is. So here we have a add script, and then what it will do is, suppose, let's say you want to add a script to run on a specific machine. Let's say I want to run this script in data power if something fails. For example, if some transaction is taking more time, probably I might want to clear the cache. So I don't want to go enter into the data power using the web UI which data power provides and then go and clear it there. Rather, I can write my own script and then add it in here. So it will come in handy in times when you want to do it very quickly. Like you can choose your script, and we ourselves, like, support IBM Middleware. So we have 30 or 40 scripts out of box which our customers would prefer to use, and you can have your own script as well. So we'll be having an agent on the other side which runs those scripts. So this is also one of the features which MonitorPro has. Okay. Uh, so if you have any questions, type in the box. Shakina?
Yes, hi Nirmal. Thank you. Thank you, Nirmal, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. Um, Please feel free to type any questions you have on the chat box, or our lines are also open. Feel free to ask the questions. And if any of the questions, if we are unable to answer, please contact us at webinar@royalcyber.com, and we will be sending the follow-up um, recorded webinar session with the link. And on behalf of Royal Cyber and our presenters, we thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.